Hi everyone. I have Laura Eisenhower with me today, and we just thought we'd get together to discuss the current situation, predominantly in the US. Um, because of you know why, we are going to try to alter words. We won't be speaking in full code, but we are going to alter some words. So, the main reason for our discussion today is to discuss the competition that is currently underway in the United States between um, DT and JB. Okay, so we haven't really talked too much about this off camera, but I know that we have a similar opinion about what's happening. So Laura, I mean, my first question to you really would be, did you pick this up beforehand? Did you know it was going to be like this, or did you expect that America would have a result of this competition, that a winner would be declared at least by the end of the voting day, or at least by the next day? Or did you see this beforehand? Were you prepared for this level of chaos and confusion, or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, in a lot of ways I was, and none of it surprises me, but it's similar to knowing that a storm's going to come, but it doesn't mean that when it hits, you're not going to kind of react to it or feel like, I mean, it's been a lot to process through and it's just frustrating because you never know, even though Trump,
Don't worry.
TikTok, even though he's called out some things in his posts, and there's been clues about voter deception, and it's like it's obvious they've been prepared for it. You just never know, because for all we know, there was a way to kind of divert it, or they would be able to maybe stop it in its tracks the moment it happened. Not to say that they maybe didn't try. The great point is, though, is that they recognized the time that happened, when everything got shut down, and all of a sudden the numbers changed, and it didn't really make any sense. And the mainstream media is steering it, and kind of convincing people and getting their energy on board with the fact that JB, is the winner, which has been very devastating to people that obviously know what that would mean for our country and for the world. So it doesn't surprise me, because they're not just going to be like, oh, okay, T1, and all right, I guess we're just going to wait and have ourselves be dragged away. And I mean, they're not going to give up that easily. I mean, it's literally a fight for survival. So if somebody is kind of losing their capacity to have power, and they're so bent on it and addicted to it, they're going to do everything under the sun. And they've utilized dark technologies to be able to set up this sort of plan to keep pulling out these cards. But it's exhausting itself, because there's always this countermeasure. There's this, there always remain two steps ahead, or he wouldn't have been able to survive his administration with all the different tactics that they've used to take him down. So it's just another one, but it's a bit of a scarier one because of the switch in power and the handing of the position of presidency over. But fortunately, there's a lot of court cases that'll be happening, and I do feel justice will happen. But this doesn't surprise me, because their whole nature is deception, psychological operations, false flags, and using the news as the weapon against the people in order to keep them from the rest. That's why they're shutting everybody down who is going to expose the truth, and that mass censorship. They're even censoring DT. So anyway, what are your thoughts? And then I got some questions for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it would happen perhaps exactly like this. I've seen for a long time that it wasn't going to be a straightforward competition between T and B, and that there was something else going on, and there was some kind of issue with the ballots and with the whole sort of voting system. But I didn't quite see how it would work out. I kind of assumed that what I was seeing was either a full T win with B and his team contesting that, or the lesser probability was that there would be a B win with Trump contesting it. I didn't actually see the level of hijacking that has actually occurred until literally the day before. So I got quite a bit of information forward, and I did a little sort of coded video. But funnily enough, we're on lockdown now as of today here in the UK. So we've been going swimming every other day since August, when our leisure centre opened, and spending 20 minutes or so in the jacuzzi. Because it's water, it is a psychic conductor. We're only allowed in, just me and my husband. No one else is allowed in with us because of the whole, um, uh, pathogen issue. So trying to say the word. So I pick up a lot, and my husband and I, Daniel and I, we call this the ice cauldron, because it's like, even though it's hot water in the jacuzzi, it's like this circle, and I pick things up, and the bubbles of the jacuzzi, they're like little sort of ice crystals. Even though they're hot, they look like little crystal balls, and I pick up a lot. So I picked up an awful lot in the jacuzzi, and I'm kind of writing everything down. And then the day before the competition, I'd already been shown, I think it was a good 2 days before that, surprisingly, I was shown the ballots. Now, I thought that was a very personal thing. You don't look at someone else's ballot, and you don't look at someone else's vote, not psychically or not in real life. You don't go up to someone and say, who have you voted for? It's just something you don't say. It's personal. So for me to be shown the ballots, I couldn't. I know now why I saw them, but at the time, a few days before the competition, I thought, I can't believe you're showing me. So I could see them all, and there they were. My goodness me, a landslide, an absolute T landslide. And there's a little bit of B, and I'm tuning in on them, but they were mostly the nefarious families and those that work for them, and a few sleepers who don't know the real story. But the awakening level across the United States is huge. Even people who you wouldn't think are spiritually awake, or even awake to the whole to the truth, they're still awake enough to know the difference between voting for B and voting for T and what it means. So I'm telling you, landslide. I couldn't believe it. And I was so pleased, because I thought I could still see some issues, and I knew that the blue team, if you will, had a nefarious plot up their sleeves, but I didn't know exactly what it would be. And it wasn't until the day before, I'm sat in the jacuzzi. Daniel got out to have a swim. I said, I'm going to stay in for one more whirl in the jacuzzi because it's just so gorgeous, and it's our last chance because we're on lockdown in 2 days. And I sat there, and then they showed me again all the ballots. There they were, all in front of me, red as you like. And I'm sat there in the jacuzzi like, wow, landslide, this is amazing. And then one by one, they turned them over, or one after the other. They turned the ballot over, the 9 that was showing me this image, or the remote viewing energy, or whatever you want to call it. They turned over from red to blue, and they were all going blue. And I'm sat there, and then that's when I knew. I thought, my goodness me, they're going to take. So it's not a case of allowing T to win and then contesting it by saying there's some loophole where he's not eligible to be, the president, or some other reason for contesting him, or even perhaps accusing him of committing a nefarious act, fraud, whatever. No, I saw they were actually hijacking the actual ballots. They were turning blue. So I tried to turn them red again in my mind. I thought, if I can do that, maybe I can affect the timeline. So I'm trying to turn them all red, but they were going back blue. So I sat there and I said, what can we do? Is there anything that we can do? And then they showed me, I can't turn them red on my own, but the star seeds together can. And I don't just mean spiritually aware people. I mean the good, honest patriots, truthers, starseeds, anyone who is aware, anyone who is good and right and wants justice, they together. And so I saw all of these people come in, and together we waved our hands, and they all went red again. So my interpretation of this, obviously now I know that the changing them to blue was the literal taking of ballots and changing them, taking T votes and changing them for B votes. These aware individuals, starseeds, people who stand for justice, digital warriors, truth seekers, everyone is playing a part to change these ballots back to the true count in the way that they can, whether they're a journalist, a spiritualist, whether they are working wherever they are in their life. Anyone with holding that justice is doing their part. And then I saw I was taken forward and I saw that justice will be done. And I could see the ballots went red again. So when all this played out, I agree with you. When you actually see it, it's like, I slightly got a bit caught up in it, thinking, I can't believe that they're doing this. But then I was thinking, well, I knew this was going to happen. And the nine were talking to me, saying repeatedly, do not allow yourself to react to what is happening in the outside world. React to the inner world. The inner world is that the ballots go red again. Justice will be served. And I know this with every fiber of my being. So I'm staying in that place, that knowing justice will be done. Now, the good side of all this is a huge awakening. It's actually going to wake people up more than ever. Yet another level of huge awakening. So that's kind of where I am with how I saw it, and where I see this going.
Oh, totally. Just some thoughts that kind of came through as you were talking. I mean, I have a client that said that I think it was a family member, I can't remember, maybe mother or sister, in their job, they forced them to vote for B. There was a massive manipulation thing to get people to do that. So, that one story means, that's just one person. Think of how many. Also, more than likely they got people in prisons or jails there's been all these different things. So fortunately, there was a sting operation to put the watermarks on the genuine ballots so that they can figure out which ones are counterfeit, and the National Guard has gone into 12 different states here in order to go in and get some honest ballots and bring this to justice. And what's crazy is I'm right there with you about, and I posted about this on Twitter, like, focus your intent. Right now, this is everything. I've worked with my cards for the last 20 years, and I use that as a tool to clear energy. It's a circle deck. It's not kind of like your typical layout as far as readings go. It has a lot to do with energy centers. And I know, archetypes and tarot has to do with that, but I've been able to use them for the last 20 years to get me through the darkest times in my life. And also on a global level, when there's been significant events happening, that's sort of like where my point of focus can go. So I can focus on my intention, clear out anything that might be getting in the way of it, understand what's coming at me, and understand what's coming from me and how the two are interacting. And so that's been a really great tool. And all day yesterday, I mean, I have like calluses, it's working energy, like, here we go again. And the cards were really, really dark. They were really, really dark. A lot of upside down death cards, showing sort of the transformation process is still being blocked. It's like we're lodged in the birth canal. We can't seem to emerge. It's like long and drawn out, a lot of stress, a lot of strife. And then it really began to clear. And it's like, so many of us are stepping up and saying, we're going to work energy. We're going to stay focused, because if it begins to crack our foundation and we begin to drop into like depression, hopelessness, or defeat, I mean, that's the whole idea behind psychological operations, is that it'll put a crack in our foundation, which allows these forces to get the best of us. If we allow our light to increase and our power to increase in the face of these adversities, this is what will, knock it all down. And the thing is, we can't just put it on Trump. We're just as important as he is, and vice versa. And that's what I loved about his recent post about your dreams are my dreams. And I'm fighting with everything I've got for your freedoms. I mean, I can't read his Twitters without like crying. Like, I just can't even believe it. And all the ridicule against him, and how people, the disappointing thing is that Project Paperclip, Mockingbird, and all these different things related to the military industrial complex, and how the fake media is involved in that weapon, that greater weapon against humanity, that even after 9/11, so many people still don't get it. And I don't want to like say that in a judgmental way, but I mean, with all the evidence there, with things like the laptop coming out and everything that you could think a person could possibly need to turn their head around, it's amazing it still doesn't work. And that's what we were kind of talking about earlier, is that the mind control gets so embedded in a person, it literally takes over their nervous system, so that the vibration or frequency of truth or awakening is the most frightening thing. And they'll do anything at all costs to avoid it. So yeah, I was just going to ask you, when you see kind of how this all moves forward, you described it so beautifully. I mean, do you feel that there could be any, kind of sabotage? And I mean, because you're sitting there in the UK, I mean, it's quite the reality to wake up and know that you're very, very limited in what you're able to do. We see this in Australia. We see it all over the world. I mean, I mean, how do you feel that what happens in this country is going to affect the whole planet? Like, and why it really comes down to what's happening in America to affect the whole world?
It's so intertwined. Obviously, I see the energies of the UK because that's where I live. So I'm tuned in on that energy. I want to know what's happening in this country because it's affecting me and the people I love. And I know that the US is incredibly pivotal. So I'm kind of seeing the US and the UK predominantly as two countries. I'm not as tuned in other countries as the UK and the US because of that. And I have a lot of people write to me saying, "Why don't you ever talk about, Australia or Germany or wherever?" I see the whole planet. I see the whole planet, and what's happening in America is affecting all of us. But obviously, I'm tuned in on what's happening in the UK because I understand on a physical level what's happening because I'm living here. So um, that's why my energy's there as well. So before I go into that, I will say that I've had several people contact me since the competition to tell me that they tried to go to vote and they were prevented from voting. Either they were told the machine had broken or they had already voted, their name had already been ticked off and they weren't allowed to vote twice. So they went home with their ballot still in their bag and they were unable to vote. And I've had quite a few emails like that. So I just thought I'd throw that in there. But how the US is affecting us and how I see that. We are, in a way, if you like, in the UK, and this does go for a lot of Europe and Australia as well, um, Canada and New Zealand possibly too. As I said, I'm not as tuned in on those countries, but we're kind of being held hostage in a way because we've got this closing in of this dark structure without any buffer, without anyone standing in their way. They have free reign at the moment. There are things changing. So, but over in the US, there's always been T. He's always been like a barrier between the American people and the dark structure. They got to get T out to be able to get to the American people so that they can get on with their agenda, their plans. They need to get the people under control, and they can't if T is stood in the way. So they're clamping down on us here in the UK and in Europe and Australia and other countries. And it's kind of like, in a way, a race because if T is declared winner of this competition and does go on to have a second term, then he's going to start making major changes. And he's going to start delivering information to people. And this is going to filter into the other countries because the controllers behind all the government structures throughout the world are all connected. And so everything is going to sort of come out with them at the same time. I did originally think that it was just T that was doing this and that everything would simply just, as he exposed things, it would filter into the other countries and into the UK. I now realize that there are other structures, specifically in the UK. I haven't seen them in other countries, but I know that they're there. As I said, I haven't tuned in on them. There are other structures of light that are going to be stepping up and doing things in their country at the same time that T is doing things in the US. So everything is rising together, everything is coming together so that these blocks to the dark controllers' steps are constantly in place. At the moment, they have free reign over here. So it's more and more of a tightening, it's more and more of a race, but they can't go too fast. If they go too fast, the people will realize what's going on. And to be honest, there is a little bit of that going on. They are going a bit too fast, really. So the people are finding out what's going on, but not fully. It's the totalitarian tiptoe that David Icke talks about that works. It has to be a slow, like, oh, we'll do this, we'll increase this restriction, and then we'll do this restriction. And it has to be all acted out like, we don't want to do this. It really pains us to do this, but if we all work together, we can do this together. This sort of narrative. That's what's being presented to us. And at the moment, it seems Liverpool is the one place in the UK that is being used first of all as a guinea pig, where they're in there with the army, and they're now the mass testing is being given out to everyone in Liverpool. It's looking as though we're now in lockdown. We're in lockdown as of today, 5th of November, Guy Fawkes Day. We're in lockdown as of today. It does look as though it's going to be, or the agenda is that you stay in lockdown, and once you have your test and you're proven to be negative and you wear a wristband or have some other kind of identification to prove that you have had a negative test, then you can go and access this cinema or this cafe, or then you can go and see your grandmother, or then you can, do these normal things that human beings have done for thousands of years that are needed for the human to do. So that seems to be the restriction. But if T is doing things over in the US, that's if T is standing in the US, his agenda is different. So if he starts to open up the US, saying, "Hey everyone, I'm the president, and this is what I'm saying. You're all going to go back to work. Children are going to school. Churches are going to open, etc., etc. We've got therapeutics. We've got this. We've got that." And he's talking on the positive, and the people are listening. And then over in these other countries, we're like, well, how come this deadly pathogen is causing this country to be open and not worried? And yet the leaders in this country are saying it's, we're looking at millions and millions of people dying from this deadly, deadly disease, and we all need to hide away in our homes. There's going to be a huge disconnect. Also, there are these informations that are coming out. Some of it is to do with T, making changes so that information comes out, and other things it's organic, it's happening cosmically. Like, for example, the laptop, it's happening. It's just like somebody leaves a laptop and doesn't think about the consequences, and then this happens, and it's this knock-on effect that's happening cosmically, and that's huge at the moment, which is why these ballots are going red again, because you can't force the positive polarization of this planet, because it's no longer in alignment with the planetary and galactic energies. So it's a race really for the UK. It's like, will T get to where he needs to be, do what he needs to do? Will these other structures step up in the UK to block the dark, nefarious plans before they actually get to the people? Or will T and these other structures step up after they've got to the people? A bit of both. Or will T and the structures not step up at all? Now, what I'm seeing is, yes, T does eventually, because you've got a huge thing going on in the US where there is continuous arguments about the competition, and the blue side portraying T as though it's all his fault. He's the one that's caused this. And why are the people even voting for him when he is such an awful person to do this? And that's the narrative that they are running, and that they're bombarding these people that are under this dream spell and this hypnotic state that they're in when they're watching mainstream media. So they're soaking it all up and are believing it. So that's going on in the US. But when he gets back to his rightful position and steps up and justice is done, what I'm seeing is at the same time, there are structures stepping up in the UK. I do see this in other countries too, but as I said, I haven't tuned in on them in the same way. The 9 said there are 5 or 6 structures stepping up in the United Kingdom that are close to political and legal. So we're looking at legal legalities. It's hard for me because I don't really understand the legal system or the political system, but we're looking at original ancient legalities in both countries. So, common law, the law of the land rather than the law of the sea. There's a political structure, or close to, I believe that to be Nigel Farage and the New Reform Party. And obviously I didn't realize Nigel Farage was a supporter of Trump until Trump got him up on stage at the rally in Arizona, and Nigel Farage spoke about him. I had no idea Nigel Farage saw who Trump was, but it's so obvious that he would, because Nigel Farage is of the light and of integrity. They have the same configuration. It was never B, the Prime Minister, that was the Britain's T. It's Nigel Farage, if you want to actually have some kind of comparison there. And so the other thing that I have been seeing as well is other structures too, and I don't know what they are, and some of these involve the people. So there's only 2 structures that I can work out of this 5 or 6 that I was told about. There's only 2 that I can work out what they are. One I think is Nigel Farage, the other is some kind of legal challenge that's going ahead, but there are other things going on too. But there was something else that the 9 showed me that I can't really work out, and this is in the future. This is way more forward. So this isn't as imminent as everything else. In the future, there's some kind of loophole. As I said, it's hard for me because I don't know the legal system or the law of the land legal system either. I haven't researched it, the common law. If you can hear bangs, it's firework night and there's fireworks going on outside my window. It seems that the original law of the land, the original constitutions are somehow connected. Don't know how. And that it may be, and this is just my interpretation of what the Nine is showing me, it looks as though the US Constitution is somehow connected to the UK Constitution and potentially other similar ancient original laws. It may be that at some time, and this is way in the future, it may be that individuals in the UK and in other countries can choose to swear allegiance to the American Constitution and to tea, even though we aren't even in that country. Now, this is further down the line and other things have got to happen and it's all got to come out. But this is how America is so connected to the rest of us, because it may be that America actually becomes the planet and we all become American.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm seeing here. The other thing I picked up, and I think I just bring this up, and it's completely outside of the topic of what we were talking about, but earlier when we were speaking off camera, you mentioned some potential threat that is being talked about regarding the American people, to do with, oh gosh, how can I say it in code? It's a bad thing that begins with the letter N. Do you remember talking about that when we were off? How can I explain it? I can't dare say the word. Okay, so it rhymes with rebuke, or it rhymes with rebuke and it begins with N. Okay, it rhymes more with, this is awful, it rhymes with puke. In England means be sick. Sorry about my awful language. It rhymes with puke, but it begins with N. Okay.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Take away the P, put in an N. Okay.
Right.
So you said something about that, and I need to tell you about a dream I had about 3 nights before the competition took place. In my dream, there was a high-level planetary threat, mostly towards the UK, but potentially towards the rest of the planet, mostly towards the south of the UK, but potentially towards everywhere else. And it was the threat of the puke that begins with N, not P. And it's actually a longer word, yeah, ending with R. I'm just using the shortened word to explain it. I hope people are following me. I daren't say the word. So everybody was absolutely panicking in my dream. They were absolutely going crazy, thinking that it was the end. They were preparing for the end of the planet. And I was stood there in my dream thinking, everyone's going crazy. Everyone's so panicked and in such a state of stress and fear. And I'm thinking, this just doesn't seem right. So I started looking into it, and I uncovered some information, and I discovered that the whole thing was a massive hoax. And everybody found out that it was a massive hoax. Now, I thought when I had this dream that maybe it was a metaphor for the germ, the pathogen. But when you mentioned the N, I thought I might let you know that I had that dream, because if there is an N threat, in my dream, it was a hoax. So just throwing that in there as well. I know that's off topic.
No, that's perfect. I mean, it's a really good segue, because basically, this is a cosmic and earthly event. What's more in charge than anything else, what has the upper hand, is, you know, the planetary consciousness and the collective consciousness, and how we're all kind of a part of that. And it's a much larger wave, as in being able to knock down this stuff that is relying on our complicity, our victimhood, and also a certain level of suffering for it to gain the upper hand. And it's too late for that. But one of the articles that I read, and I don't know if it's necessary to say where from, but just to protect names and algorithms.
I know it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, it's basically saying that some of these sort of attacks, if B were to win, if he were to be defeated.
Yeah, if T were to be declared winner.
Yeah, like right away, the level of attacks would have been everything from mortar attacks on police stations and fire stations, kinetic attacks on power grid substations and power generation plants, violent uprisings in the streets, door-to-door execution, like really, really gnarly stuff. So the fact that everything is a little bit unformed, I mean, this article also goes into that they already knew in advance that Trump was was going to win. So they, were able to set this up. And in knowing about the fraud that was going to happen, they created a sting operation that's, been successful. So it's not quite playing out in the way that this article described. I think they were saying, in the event that he's defeated. But the thing is, I mean, they also talk about the fact that there would be fraud. So maybe it's the victory that's going to come about later that could lead to these, level of attacks. But, kind of like you said, there's always going to be the worst case scenario based in what their plans are. But their plans aren't very successful when you've got this light energy coming through people and this greater sort of, awakening, kind of happening, because it needs to be able to plug in. It needs to be able to steal from us and take our life force. If we're really able to work on shielding ourselves and really being anchored to these organic energies and these ascension signals and avoid, all this other stuff. I mean, that is our strength right now. So another thing is one has to be very careful of the manipulation of the testing is the worst part, because that kind of links into the greater AI and surveillancing and how they, once they get their hooks in, they can really determine who stays and who goes. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if you've, been tested, be in fear about it. There are ways that one can work with certain tools and modalities and like structures or EMF, protection or something to maybe counteract the effects of, what that could do. The thing is, even if there is a worst case scenario and it starts to get, like you said, are they going to get their grips in? They already sort of have, but is it going to go further? And then there's the ability to kind of knock it down, or is it going to be prevented before it gets really bad? I think regardless, either way, there's all sorts of rehabilitation that will come in to counteract even what we might consider the most negative, possibilities, because this plan has been put in place since the very beginning. I mean, the Guardian teams and the Starseeds and, so much in our, greater history has been very well aware of this agenda. And the plan was put in place decades ago. So this isn't just some new thing where, oh my gosh, all of a sudden we're the military is aware that this is going on and they're coming up with some plans. I mean, the plan that was put in place, and that was even before, I think all connected way before, just in these groups interacting with Earth that are benevolent. But I know Eisenhower's administration was part of safeguarding our constitutional rights in the event that there would be this sort of event happening. And something called Project Moonshadow came about, and it works with more benevolent ETs. And what it does is it creates a benevolent super soldier that is not trauma-based mind control and abused in order to become a weapon. It's to counteract all this kind of stuff. And so when we're dealing with a much larger picture of what's here and what's available, we're not just dealing with military on a ground level. We're also dealing with, these benevolent groups that have created alliances with, positive military and, these things that were put in place because it couldn't really be disclosed. And so we missed out on that disclosure. And a lot of the stuff that went into secrecy wasn't just things about the hybridization programs or the Greys or, the reptilian agenda. A lot of things that we weren't able to hear about are the most benevolent and positive things that, are also part of our greater consciousness and this greater team of, energy that we're all a part of, that when we hold the light for it, we give it support as it gives us support. And so it's going to be interesting to see, how it all plays out. But when when one really takes a good hard look at, all that they have planned, I mean, this goes back to every false flag in history, all the world wars leading up to the different kind of war on consciousness and the psychological operations like 9/11 and the war on terror. And the fact that, Eisenhower tried to warn us that, okay, the warning about the military industrial complex was basically the warning that the Nazis have infiltrated and they've come into the United States and they've taken their agendas and they brought them over here. And there was nothing that he could do to stop it because, this happened before he became president through, paperclip and whitewashing the names of the Nazi scientists. So all these projects were put in place to create, this mind control. And so if people just snap out of the trance, that's going to help us all. And that's where our power lies. And I wish people would realize that, You know, if they could stop polarizing themselves and just being so locked into whatever the Democratic Party used to represent and see this much larger picture, you know, we could all really work together, because truly we do want the same things, you know, but they're literally letting themselves be a host to these parasitic forces. It's like, why can't they just get it? And they're talking about racism. The only reason they don't like Trump is because he's a white rich guy. It's like, you know, it's hypocrisy. So many Black, you know, individuals have just pronounced their utter devotion to this man for all that he's done. I mean, nobody listens. It's so anyway. I don't know if that brought in some necessary information, or but
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a huge plan, and you're absolutely right in everything you say. It's been in the making for years, and there are so many other programs going on, so much disclosure, and to actually give this huge picture to the people all in one go, this is going to be an unraveling over time. So, you know, we know that there's been rigged elections, rigged competitions, in different ways, as in both parties have been owned. This is probably the first time I think that the ballot fraud has actually occurred at this level, that I can see, at the level that it's at now. I know it's gone on before, but people don't know this. They believe that you know, we're in a democracy in all countries, and that when we vote, we really have a say. And what's happening right now in America will actually open people's eyes. But in answer to your question as to why people don't see, they are sort of conditioned to think that you and I, if they listen to you and I speaking, they would listen to us. Those who are following the mainstream and believe in what they're hearing on the mainstream, and therefore will want B to win and not T, they would listen to us and think those women are crazy. They're crazy. They're living in a fantasy world. They've been reading too many comics or smoking some crazy, you know, substance. They will think we're crazy. And the thing is, you have to have an aligned resonance with the truth in order to see it in the first place. So you're constantly being bombarded with things that will wake you up. But unless you actually make a step yourself, if you have to pull yourself away from the television, away from entertainment or dramas or whatever, even though there's awakening in everything, even televisions and dramas and computer games. But if you're not in alignment with that level of truth, because it's not just truth as in the competition, T and B, or the testing, or the pathogen. As you say, it's another layer and another layer and another layer and another layer, right up to the extraterrestrial, the galactic, our ancient history. Is this all going to come out? Yes, it is. Over time, it's all going to come out. And this awakening cannot possibly be done overnight. What I am seeing, however, is a very fast move at the moment. Things seem to be unraveling very quickly at the moment. I think it might sort of slow down a little bit and then rapidly speed up again, hurtling towards December the 21st. People have asked me how long I see this lasting for and what is the time frame. I put out a video talking about my novel that I am creating. So I'm talking about one of the chapters in the novel, talking about the first wave of the germ, but it's also the first wave of awakening. The second wave of the germ, which is also the second wave of awakening, which we're in now, definitely in the UK. But that second wave of the germ is kind of the narrative that's filtering in throughout the planet. That now in this second wave, we're putting a dent into the control structure with what's happening with the US competition and T, and what's happening over here, and the fact that we do have challenges to the control structure now here in the UK, and what's happening in, I mean, I see Germany being very significant actually when it comes to a political challenge towards the governmental structure. I think it's happening in Australia as well. So when, with all of that going on at the same time, everything's sort of coming together to a head. Everything is coming together to a head, and it's putting a dent in this second wave of the germ, which is also a second wave of awakening globally. So it's putting a dent in the control structure, enough to push them back and think, we're delayed. We can't move forward here with our agenda because we're now being pushed back. So they either have to delay and wait and try again with the same agenda, or they have to switch to plan B or plan C, or use a different group to come in somewhere else. Yeah, they've got a control structure in place. It's cleverly thought out. It's, you know, that, as you say, it's been going on for years. So the second wave of awakening, or the second wave of the germ, isn't enough to actually stop the control structure and bring it down. It's the third wave of the germ, the third wave of the awakening, that will bring the structure down. That's it. It will go. People are asking me of a time frame, and the reason why I didn't give a time frame in my novel, in my plot line, is I don't have the time frame. If I had the time frame, I would have, and I've been bombarded with people. What's the time frame for the third wave of awakening, or the third wave of the germ? Now, looking at the energies, I am guessing the spring of 2021. But the timelines are so converged, and the energy is moving so fast, and it is hinged on what's occurring with the US competition, which is why it's so important. But going back to what you said about the threats and the potential threats, which I do feel can't be necessarily fully carried out in the way that it's being presented. This is like a generation of fear. Like my dream, the N was a hoax to generate fear, because fear creates the matching timeline. So if they can generate enough fear, then that's more likely for B to actually win this competition, because B is in alignment with the fear vibration. So that's why the Starseeds are the ones that are turning the ballots red again, because they know to raise the energy and focus on what? The true timeline of real justice, and T taking his rightful place. He won with a landslide. That is the organic truth. He is the rightful winner, and that will become made known. That's justice. So open your heart and rejoice. He's won. Keep saying to yourself, even if you see on television they're saying B is now declared the winner, which may have happened while you and I are talking, for all we know. You know, it could happen at any time. For all we know, B's already been declared winner. Who knows? But it isn't real. Knowing your heart. Knowing your heart. I've seen the ballots, and I can't believe they showed me the ballots. I now know why. I was clearly supposed to see them, so I could tell everyone I've seen them, because what I see is not what's being shown on mainstream news. They wouldn't show me the ballots otherwise. I wouldn't see the ballots of a personal, genuine competition, a presidential competition. I wouldn't see the ballots. They're sacred. I was shown them because of the fraudulent activity. So rejoice. The truth is, and people are seeing this as having the competition stolen from T. Yes, absolutely. It's been hijacked and it's been stolen. That's awful. But
you can't lose what's truly yours.
Exactly. Not in a positively polarized energetic, which is where we are in this galactic field. It has to flip.
Yeah. And if the collective is holding that, and that is the dominant energy, then that is the guiding principle behind the creative flow of what's taking place. I mean, lies only stand for so long, they expire. That's why they need this dark technology to continue to siphon. They want to keep us in fear. As long as we're in fear, they can keep taking that energy to generate this artificial reality. The minute, we hold in our hearts, the truth, that truth frequency overrides everything. And we know in our own lives, if we're in a situation that's deceptive or unhealthy, or we're feeling compromised, and we know something's not right, that inner guidance is going to help alleviate us, take us away from that negative situation. It's going to help us to, rise above or bounce back from any injury or anything, that's taken place, because it's regenerative and it's eternal and it's infinite. And it's, and this is the wave of energy that represents, this time of ascension, that Trump's chart and who T's chart and what he represents is holding absolute and total space for it. It's his greater destiny. There's no afflictions. It's rock solid, light energy. And just like with anything, we go through initiations in life. Life can kick our butt a bit until we wake up and we step into what we're really here to do. And he's done that. So the North Node next to his sun means it's taken a bit of time for him to step into his true role and be his true self. And everything else was just life experience. learning, maybe the hard way, learning that money doesn't buy happiness, putting his attention on something that really has meaning. I mean, this was a huge growth for him. So Uranus, which is the planet also in the mix near his North Node and Sun sign, is that powerful light energy. It's the planet that represents sovereignty, liberation, and it literally is the trump card. It overrides all these dark systems. It's the wrecking ball that is out with the old and in with the new, and the transiting North Node's right on top of it. So the light is shining on him to play this role, and it's unstoppable. And it's not just him, it's all of us that are in that unified field, embodying it in our own different ways, in our own different roles. But it's an unstoppable force. And the fact is, the people chose, he won. That's a creative power that they can try and manipulate. They can try and fool people, but the ones that truly know it can't be fooled. So the numbers, it's like the war on consciousness has been won as far as the vote was cast for ascension with the people. And no matter how much they try and take that away, it's just going to dissolve in the frequency. So all those that are really feeling crushed right now, because we were talking about that before, can you talk to us a little bit about, what to say to those that are very awakened beings that were very much in supportive of his administration, that literally feel like they don't want to continue, and they're not being patient right now, and they might even threaten to exit this human realm? Is that okay to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I have had people contact me saying that if B wins, they will check out because they don't want to live in an NWO reality. And whilst I can understand that, that is, you are taking the premise that if B wins, it's a guaranteed NWO reality forever, and we become a slave race. I can understand why people would think that, and there are many that do. They think, we're doomed. Everything's playing out just like we thought. They've hijacked the competition. They're doing this over here in the UK and all these other countries, and it's NWO. I can only tell you what the nine tell me and what I see, and obviously it's up to each individual whether they can take store in someone else's perspective. But really, the perspective is yours. Now, if you're so low to the point where you feel you have to check out, it's going to be difficult for you to access your perspective, your inner knowing, because you're going to be feeling so low. So what I would say to those people is, at least wait. Don't make such a rash decision of checking out on an act that may only be step one of a plan that has 10 to 50 steps in it. Because remember, someone winning the competition and being declared president does not mean they're going to be inaugurated. Only when they are inaugurated are they president. Do I see B being inaugurated? No. Now, the plan here, it's not B anyway. It's Kimelina, the dark, whatever you want to call her, the dark priestess, behind B. So let's call her H, okay? Now, what I've seen with her that was coming to me unbidden, these visions, she's being prepared for something. I even saw them putting some kind of robes on her, that could be metaphoric, and almost giving her like a drama lesson, like a theatre lesson. I know because I've done drama and had many drama lessons and rehearsals. And it's almost like she was being taught to have a genuine emotional reaction to something. Almost like she was saying, "Oh, really? I can't believe I didn't expect this." I think what she's being taught is to have an organic reaction to being told that she is actually going to be the president, because B won't be able to be. So this organic big surprise is a rehearsal that she's going through now. Now, the timeline for her becoming president is closer than B, because the intention is not B, the intention is H. So obviously the timeline's going to be there, because if you have an intention for something, especially if there's a group of you holding an intention for something, which there is, that creates a reality. But it's not in alignment with the galactic intention. This is the whole thing. And so to anyone who wants to check out, all you are basing your decision on is an act that's occurring on the physical level. And if you can only see the physical level, then that's why you're basing your decision on it. So all I would say is do whatever it takes to at least be open to the fact that there's more than the physical level, like Laura and I are saying. Give it a bit of time. I've spoken to other people before who've wanted to check out. And when they've realized that there is actually another layer and another layer and another layer, and that there are multi dimensions, they've changed their mind. And they've come back to me 2 years later and said, "You saved my life." So that's my intention, is to not see that happen, because if you check out, you are absolutely playing into the group behind B, because that's what they want. They want to reduce the numbers of life on this planet. So take a step back and do whatever it takes. Ask for help. Go and see someone. I mean, the people that came to me didn't actually seem that down or depressed anyway. It was more of a, I'm not going to be here. If it's NWO, I'm going. It was quite a sort of a focused mindset. And I understand that. It's like saying, if you're coming to get me, I'd rather check out on my own than you get me. That's the kind of,
yeah.
but are they coming to get you? Yes, they want to, but will they be able to? And I'm telling you, the answer to that is no, not if you are standing in alignment with the galactic energy and allowing that energy to run through you. And I know it's a leap of faith, but I know this with every fiber of my being. And do you know what? I've never, ever in 12 years as a psychic or planetary psychic or clairvoyant or channel, I've never said, listen to what I'm saying because I was right about that. Never. I've always left other people to decide if they think that the predictions that I make and the information I have is right. But on this one issue, if somebody's talking about checking out, I am going to say to them, go and watch my video that talks about what happened before the competition started. And everything that's played out is what I said would happen. I'm not saying this from ego so that you think, oh, wow, Magenta's a great channel and a psychic. No, anyone who was tuned into this energy could see it. I'm saying it to the people who want to check out because they don't want to be here under an NWO timeline. Go back, listen to what I said, realize that I do have insight into what is coming. And please just take a step back and wait a little bit longer. It's about patience, and it's not even patience. The nines say to me, temperance. Do you know what? I mean, you've got cards. I don't even really know what temperance actually means. I mean, I know it means a calm patience and a kind of a longevity of stamina. What does it mean? Because the nines say to me, temperance is what will allow you to ride through this. What is temperance? What does it actually mean?
I don't know if I'd, go ahead.
You use cards, and I mean, I guess you must have that come up in the cards.
I do. Actually, I had it come up in one of the readings. Once a lot of the darker energies were clearing, it was kind of when we were all sort of experiencing the unknowns. I mean, obviously, everything got shut down in the middle of the election. T was ahead, and there's, just a lot of confusion and just, seeing all this, feeling into kind of the collective was what I was like holding space for, and what we're deciding as a collective in the face of this. Are we going to drop into fear or what? And just like holding that intent and shuffling and just moving through the energy. And then temperance came up. And what that card kind of brings up for me, even though it probably is defined a little bit differently, maybe in the interpretation of the deck, but the vibration that I get when I see it is sort of like a multidimensional balance. You're not looking at reality through the lens of just the 3D or the personality matrix or things that one sees based in the world of appearances and facades or what it seems to look like. It is that calm and patience that has a trust in something much greater and higher. And when we can stay in alignment with that, like you were talking about, that generates through our creative channels, that becomes a part of our creative expression, that becomes a part of the collective consciousness that we have to, hold space for through being grounded and centered, in ourself, finding that internal peace and being the eye of the storm and just really protecting the auric field. And so it's a balance and a recognition that occurs at much, much higher levels. And it allows the integration of the higher awareness into the physical so that the world of appearances, the masks begin to drop away, and metaphorical as well. all the facades begin to drop away, because you're able to actually look at reality through the human lens that isn't cut off from your higher awareness. You're not no longer being fooled into a false version of reality. The wisdom of you and the higher awareness of you is able to come in and see through the lies and deceptions, and you can have peace and balance, because that spark of spirit that is so ignited on the planet right now in this ascension window, with the mother energies being really anchored and the ether energy being back, and the fact that Ophiuchus in the 13th sign, we're going to move through that activation before December 21st. It's a major purification time. That knowingness and that trust can give a certain sense of security and stability, so that we're not just knocked off our center every time we hear disappointing news. It's just we're just kind of in our breath and in our center. So that card wasn't fully upright. So it's like, that's the huge growth period we're in right now. And also to use our words, because of the frequency that it carries, because it creates our reality. When we speak, it becomes more real. It's like we can have an image of what we want to paint, but the minute we take that paintbrush and we begin to paint, it's like, oh, now you can see something. You're creating something. So our words are really powerful. What we choose to energize. We're gonna, have our moments where we might go into a low place, but as long as we bounce back, really quickly, we're transmuting and alchemizing, all these things that are trying to derail us. And if we can know that the pain and discomfort of it all is very temporary, it's just a part of the growth period. It's a part of the growing pain of like getting back to ourselves. It can actually bring us great strength. So I always like to use the term spiritual athlete. In the face of obstacles, we're learning how to fly over the obstacles instead of hit our head and become victimized by it and feel like, it's just too much. We can't, we just don't have it in us. Are you kidding me? This is pushing us to the edge so that we reclaim our true spiritual abilities. And sometimes it takes being pushed to the edge to reclaim those treasures. So if we can look at this adversity right now as the opportunity and catalyst behind something huge, we can always spin around the negative into something of a blessing in disguise, because the greater powers, or the true source energies, the divine template that we hold, always has the upper hand, or else they wouldn't be trying to fool us out of it. So, that's all they can do is trick us out of ourselves. So the minute we end that game, it's like we have to end that game, and we're with narcissistic relationships or toxic people. We have to break those relationships and not be a receptor anymore and allow it to plug in. And the minute we, create a barrier, and it has nothing to feed on, and enough of us do that, we're golden. And so we know who won. Now the next step is don't let ourselves drop into a vibration that can be leveraged and utilized by the dark side, even if you're well-intentioned, So I don't even know if I answer what you were saying, but temperance. Yeah. So it's exactly the word that I would say is the word of our times right now. And also when we think of temperance, it's like temperance. It's like to smooth out maybe the reactionary part of ourselves as well. So
to dampen down any temper and take a smooth journey rather than a reactionary journey. But I think you have got it. Everything you said, that is absolutely it. You're talking about a blessing in disguise. I mean, how do we know? Or rather than saying how do we know, it may be better to say you can create this, that this timeline, this outcome is actually the optimum one. Because if you're saying that there was a potential threat against the people, should T have actually had a landslide without interference, that timeline may have resulted in something much worse. In the level of, maybe if they thought that they could get away with hijacking the ballots rather than actually reacting in a violent way, this sort of who's won is holding everything so that this violence is maybe tempering out. And also we're talking about, you mentioned a blessing in disguise. Look at the awakening that's going to occur. People will be asking questions like never before. They are already all over. It's like, look what's happening in America. Every country's talking about it. It's all over our news, all over daytime shows in the UK. I mean, it's obviously being spun in what is T doing? How did he even get a single vote? I mean, this man is crazy. That's the narrative. But they're still talking about it. And when things start to change, I mean, I actually couldn't believe that the man called Rudy. I'm not going to sort of fully say his name, although I don't think he's particularly controversial, maybe a bit. I couldn't believe he was actually shown on his speech when he came out. They actually showed the whole speech on mainstream television in the United Kingdom. I'm sat there talking to my family and a couple of friends in my little WhatsApp chat, and I'm like, this is on mainstream. All of my like sleeper friends who aren't aware, they'll be watching that. Yeah, they might come away and think, oh, that's that crazy man from Borat, because they've spun a little sort of false narrative for him because of the whole laptop thing. But can you really actually keep on putting everything into the way you want it inside you when you are faced continuously with intelligent people who are presenting a very logical outcome? Maybe you can do it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, but not forever. And more and more and more is going to come out. So it may well be, or you can create it to be so, that this is the most optimum timeline because of the awakening that's coming out of it. As you say, a blessing in disguise. And I think this can occur with any situation. We have to hold this personally. We walk down the street and we fall over and we cut our leg. We're really upset because our leg hurts and we have to put a plaster on it. But us falling over prevented us walking into a certain shop where we would have bumped into a crazy person who would have harmed us. So us hurting our leg is far, far better for us than meeting this crazy person around the corner. Now, this happens, synchronicity, as you've spoken about as well so many times. This happens all the time. And it was one of the first lessons that I learned when I started to wake up spiritually. And it was actually my brother who said to me, whenever life presents a challenge, there's a gift in the palm of its hand. And I remember thinking, what does that mean? And he showed me, he said, life presents a challenge. There's the challenge. And you open your hand and there's a gift in the palm of your hand. See the gift. And when I got it, when I actually understood what that meant, I just thought, wow, it blew my mind. And from then on, like 1993, when I first kind of went, from then on, every challenge I've ever had, I'm like, where's the gift? And there is always one. Even my father passing away, my wonderful, amazing, intelligent father who taught me everything. Where's the gift in him going? Well, there's many, but one of them is he's not here now. He didn't live to be shut in a care home without his daughter and his other children ever being able to visit him. I feel, as I've said before on interviews, I feel so sorry for the parents who can't see their family and the family feeling like they've been abandoned. I was with my father when he passed. Whenever there was a problem, they'd phone me and I'd go straight down there. That wouldn't be able to happen now. So the gift is that he went at the right time. It's almost like he knew. It was almost like he said, I'm going to go now before you deal with all this. I've taught you everything you need to know. You can get through it. I'm okay to leave now. My children will be fine. That kind of thing. And that's only one gift. So, and that's a personal thing to me. But let's look at this competition and the fact that right now, across mainstream television across the world, B is in the lead and may well be declared the winner. How do we know that that is not the most optimum outcome? And let us make it so. Where's the gift? The gift is potential protection for many American people because there's no violence. The gift is a huge awakening. The gift is an awareness of the voting system and of elections itself. The gift is the crumbling of the old system, the whole 2-party system or 3-party system and the presidential race and the political structure in and of itself. This is all part of the awakening and it's painful. As you said, it's the birthing pains. It's the birthing pains of the earth being the earth mother giving birth. Labor is painful, but we have the beautiful gift at the end of the wonderful baby. So I think we have to look at this from so many different angles, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to be affected, that you won't feel cheated and angry because you, the American voters, it's you that have been disenfranchised, if you will. You've been prevented from your right to vote. But then looking back in history, have you ever really had a right to vote when the parties have been so controlled?
Right.
Yes, sometimes, when your great grandfather was standing and other good presidents like him, but many a time it's been a controlled situation, and they've owned both sides, and they've both been from the dark structure. So
Exactly.
you've got to look at the whole big picture before you um, move into despair, and you need to come into this taking a step back and really opening your eyes and looking at everything and feeling everything. Then find the knowing. Justice will be served. How does that actually play out? Does justice will be served mean that the rightful person will win? It may not. It may mean that true justice is served, as in there won't be a president at all, or maybe, I don't know, will there be two presidents set up in two different buildings? We don't know how this will play out. There are multiple potentials, and a divided nation and huge infighting would be not necessarily an optimum timeline, but it may lead to something optimum. So there's all these different ways in. Do I think Trump will be T do I think T will be declared the rightful winner? I do, absolutely, yes, I absolutely do. But we've got to go through the whole recount, and potentially, and very high probability, going to the Supreme Court. And as far as I'm concerned, the one called Amy, with the surname CB, her being brought in to place literally 2 weeks before the competition, if this whole planetary structure was all built on an NWO inverted matrix, then why did someone like her get in the first place? Because from what I can see as a psychic, she holds integrity, she holds light, and she's highly skilled at being objective and neutral. And everything she said in those hearings was the truth. And they attacked her, and they attacked her, and they attacked her. And she calmly answered the questions and responded to those attacks with sense and with dignity. And she's not somebody who's going to bring her own bias in, because she knows not to have bias. I've been taught the same. I'm sure you have. Don't have bias when you're a channel. Bring down the pure energy. My father taught me to be objective and taught me what objectivity was when I was very young. And I can recognize it in another. And this Amy, CB, she has that. So if it goes to the court, you've got someone there who's able, and she's not going to be thinking, oh, yes, I want T to win because I have a loyalty to him. Of course not. She will look at the evidence provided. And the evidence to me looks very, very clear. And in another thing I'd like to say, I was saying earlier how this is a very clever organized situation, clever, and it's been planned. On one level, that's true, it is. But on another level, when you get to a state of awareness and you look at the plan, it's almost like a child has designed it, because they leave all this mess and it's so obvious what they've done and everything comes out. It's almost like, did you not cover your tracks? So although it's clever on the one hand, it's actually like a child has designed it on another. For someone with insight, it's so clear. When I actually put on mainstream television and listen to the spin, every word, it's just, I sit there shaking my head, and it's so clear to see, so clear to see. And from that point of view, it is baffling how anyone can't see it. But of course, they are under a light hypnosis. They are under a brainwashing, under the dream spell, and fully believing it. And to them, we are insane. So that's where these different perspectives are. And we need to collectively, all of us, do our part in assisting the breakdown of that dream spell and freeing these people from this brainwashing. And that's not going to be easy for them. So with you, do you feel that absolutely justice will be served, but do you feel that T will be declared the rightful winner and be declared president?
I do. And they probably need to be very careful about the timing of it all, because of all these other things that we talked about. That probably needs to be put under control before maybe he's declared, so the backlash isn't to the extreme that it could be. Like all of that is taken care of, and you know, the military protection, National Guard is where it needs to be in order to, you know, keep that from happening. And that's why I feel like, even though it might not make sense in looking at it squarely at this moment, if you look at the larger picture, it actually, you know, kind of does. So the massive deprogramming, yeah, really has to happen, because it's not just, you know, mainstream news. This has been indoctrination in our school systems and universities, and everything that people have created their whole sense of worth around, you know, the positions that they hold in society, the careers and jobs that they have, the paycheck that they've gotten, the things that they were taught to be really, really proud of, you know, in the reward system of, you know, if you play by our rules and you limit yourself to the education that we're giving you, if you succeed in that and you get the good scores and you go through, you know, this training, and we put you in this position and you're making, you know, really good money, and it's propping you up to make you feel like you're, you know, helping people. This other sort of thing that people like you and I are focused on is like a foreign entity. It's so easy to just say, oh no, that's absolutely conspiracy theory, because every year of my life since a certain age, I've been answering to this system, and I've been getting certificates and degrees and an upstanding, you know, reputation in my community. And, you know, and a lot of those individuals, of course, are a part of the ritual abuse stuff. And I mean, some of the most prominent people in our societies are connected with that. But the ones that aren't, where that compartmentalism is, where they're well-intentioned individuals, it's just so frightening to their whole foundation that I feel like it's almost like being in denial that you're maybe with a partner that's cheating on you, or that you're being betrayed by your best friend. You don't want to believe it at first. It's just so horrifying to accept that kind of reality. So it's easier to just be like, yeah, okay, we can easily just brush them off, just call them a label, and keep on going, and trust what we're seeing. They might think, you know, B isn't the most ideal, but anything is better than what they feel this other person is, because of the fact that everybody knows that he's been connected to some sort of larger operation that is busting things that are too hard for them to swallow, as far as the trafficking and the ritual abuse, you know, and a lot of stuff that you can't red pill somebody too quick with all that stuff, because it does sound like insanity. But you know, even yeah, victims are coming out, oh, they must be paid, or they're just looking for attention. It's like, you can make all the excuses in the world, and you can say that it's for political reasons, but these exposures have been going on for more than 30 years, you know, with Kathy O'Brien and others. This has nothing to do with party. They're corrupt on both sides. It's about, you know, all this stuff. So I do feel that he is going to, you know, gain that position at a time where it's going to be safer for us, and that that it will be, you know, a mass awakening that can't happen overnight without it almost being too much. So that's why also it has to be gradual. It's slowly like accepting the fact that, okay, all the clues are there, there's no way to turn away from it, and that deep down inside, the soul of that person is not going to want them to move on that negative timeline, that they'll create some event in their life where it hits close enough to home for them to open their eyes and open them real quick. Because nobody would want to go, you know, down that particular timeline. I also see that, you know, there would be some kind of bifurcation, whether people stay in the physical or not. I mean, there's got to be, you know, something else. I can't see that awakened people and starseeds that have made agreements with themselves and this force on the planet creating this great change, that they would be subject to something absolutely against their will or consent in this way. So I don't know about the bifurcation part of it all, but I do feel it is going to move at the speed in which it's manageable for some individuals, and that it's not based in the lowest common denominator, maybe somewhere in the middle, you know, for this kind of, you know, gradual thing. Because it's just like with the body, if you detox too fast, or you go through with too much withdrawal, you can die from the withdrawal and the detox symptoms if you're not careful. So I think on a collective level, there's an agreement to do this real slow, so that the force of having to accept this doesn't cause a lot of people to want to join into the riots and into the destruction, because they're a part of that. You know, so I do feel he will be declared at a good timing. And if not, I kind of in agreement with you that maybe nothing like that's going to happen at all, and something else is going to rise, something else that's based in the galactic presence, you know, like not a new world order sort of alien government, but something where just the cosmic and natural law coming closer to the earth, coming back to the earth, and more communities being developed with maybe, you know, leadership in a more localized kind of way in order
Yes.
to help us to be closer to the land, to build healing centers, to help with the rehabilitation, to help with the disclosure of advanced technologies that are in sync with our DNA and our awakening process will begin to come in. But I just know that he could be a leader that helps initiate that. So yeah, I think it's just a timing thing, and that we are a collective, we are greater intelligence, so is the planetary consciousness. And we are kind of moving in this oneness field as we are approaching it in very diverse ways. But it's almost like we're in communication between our higher selves of how this needs to unfold, but our conscious mind and our ego mind might not remember or see it that way. But I just feel like we know what we came here for. We knew what these times would be about. And if we could just focus on connecting into that unified field and just putting our hearts and minds together, we will be the creative force and dominant creative force that will make sure that justice happens. Justice can really only happen when we are clear. Because if we hold on to the ignorance of other people's mistakes, if we hold on to the toxicity that others are carrying through not kind of releasing through our anger or our grief, then we're holding the burden of their mistakes. We need to release ourselves so it can go back to them and give them the event that they need to wake up. Because very often we store other people's mistakes, or and it takes a long time to heal from maybe childhood wounds because you're internalizing it. We have to just let it out. We have to just speak our truth with forgiveness and compassion and send those energies back to where they belong, so that we're not holding it in our systems. I've always known, as I bounce back from the most negative and dark experiences, when I forgive and I free myself from whatever it is, instead of like walking around letting it cripple me, or hurt me. The minute I free myself from it, then I usually notice a little while later that they experience something where they come back and they say, I'm sorry, I was totally mistaken. But they're not going to do that as long as I'm holding on to their mistake and I'm letting it hurt me and eat at me and eat away at me. So let's just like lighten it up and let's celebrate. Let's be in a celebratory place and really like raise the vibration, because that's going to create divine justice a lot quicker.
Absolutely. And if we celebrate, we will find something to celebrate for. And we should be celebrating because the person that was voted in by the American public has actually won. I don't know if you can hear these bangs. These fireworks are going crazy around my house right now. They're like really, really noisy. The bifurcation as well that you mentioned, I see that too. I'm not sure how that will manifest. I'm not saying there's going to be two presidents, one in the White House and one in another White House somewhere else, but metaphorically it looks like that. It's almost as though even if T is declared the actual rightful winner, there will be people that won't believe it and that will think that that's false, and that they will see B as the rightful winner and will, or actually, as I said, it will be H behind B. It's going to be Kimola. That's the real candidate. So there's potentially a bifurcation, but there's a bifurcation already. It's just going to become more evident. But that in itself is waking people up. When people see a bifurcation of that is that extreme, it causes a sort of a dissonance within them. It's like, how can these two polarities actually coexist? And then that acts as a catalyst for their awakening, as you said. So I think we're kind of on the same page with what we see here, aren't we?
Oh yeah, and I know we probably need to close, but yeah, just one more thought. When they, even if they were to like censor and ban, there's always going to be an alternative platform that begins to grow. She will always be a leader. We'll always be mission orientated. We will always be building the team of light, and wherever they try and silence us is where we're going to be loud someplace else, and that'll be continue to grow and build, and then they're going to be sitting there all by themselves on this other social media, like, wow, we kind of miss them, even though we made fun of it or thought they were crazy. We're missing that vibration, and we are feeling that cold and dark winter. What are we thinking? Where did they go? So I mean, worst case scenario, we'll just move camp, and we kind of and that is part of the bifurcation, that wherever they try and stop us, we pop up someplace else, and in a way, whether we shut down our stuff or they shut us down, it doesn't really matter, because it's very hard to hold the same space with those that support those dark agendas that are owning these kind of platforms. So I know that as long as I'm still up, I'm going to continue to speak. We got to obviously be careful, but there's always alternatives, and the things we have to stay fluid and creative. The minute we're in duality, we'll only see it as defeat, failure, or success and winning. We have to be more fluid and just know that there's never ever defeat or failure. There's just another doorway to open up to grab more of our great potential.
Absolutely. And I'd say that to anyone who's on lockdown right now and cannot go out to work and has been prevented from working. It's time to look at I mean, you can make a stand and refuse to not comply. That's one path that can be taken, or stand with those that are going to challenge the government structures legally. But there are other innovative ways of thinking and other creations. What can you do in the situation you are in? Simple things like, I was so upset to leave the jacuzzi. Getting in every other day since August. I love being in the jacuzzi. It's just so beautiful, and it's the ice cauldron to me, and I'm seeing all these things, and and it makes me, if I've got any aches or pains, it's so beautiful. But I knew I couldn't go in, so instead of going into despair and like, I really miss the jacuzzi, I'm really annoyed at the government for doing this, and I thought, okay, it's time to say goodbye to the jacuzzi. Let's look at something new. Shall I go for a walk? Shall I start doing some yoga? Shall I see if I can buy a lazy spa and shove it in the garden or something? I mean, there's ways, even if it's the smallest thing, right to the biggest thing, such as this competition in America. Everything you've said, I completely agree with. And thank you so much for joining me for this impromptu chat today. I've had so many people write to me asking, when are you going to do another chat with Laura? And I know that you've had people ask the same. And so, just a spur of the moment decision for us to get together and have a chat. So it's been really lovely, and I hope people have enjoyed listening to us.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for having me. And I just resonate with everything you're saying. And I love how we kind of bounce off each other, and we're saying, similar things in different ways, and really covering a really, vast amount of territory. So I really appreciate it. It's always amazing to be in your presence, and I look forward to just staying close and connected, and just being together on this crazy journey and seeing what happens next.
Where can people find you, Laura? Because a lot of people have asked me, are you in touch with Laura? How can I get hold of her? Where can people find you? Because I know you have been booted off one of the social media platforms, haven't you?
Yes. So I have a different name, and I don't know if I should, give it out on video, but
don't say it, but they can ask around, and somebody.
Yeah, you can ask around. You'll be able to find it. And my website's cosmicgaia.org. And I have an event coming up November 8th, which is this Sunday. It's a 3-hour workshop webinar, and it's at 12 Pacific. And then I've got 2 subscriptions there, and also a free newsletter that you can sign up for. And that's just a really great thing to do in case anything gets shut down. That'll keep us in touch with each other. But you can read about what these other subscriptions are. I got a Patreon with David Rodriguez, Dark to Light, and then a Cosmic Gaia subscription. And I do like 4 Zoom events that are interactive a month. And I kind of trying to help also people build home businesses, and just know that, that there's community and you're not alone. So
wonderful. And I was recently in a fantastic documentary called Deconstructing Sentience. It's up on YouTube. It is a free documentary. It's 3 hours, and the documentary is absolutely just wonderful. And if you really are feeling like you need some centering right now and some upliftment, then please go watch it in smaller chunks if you don't want to watch 3 hours all in one go. But the other guests in the documentary are the lovely Marina Jacobi, and there's Bruce Lipton, and Greg Braden, and Daryl Anker channeling Bashar, and tons of other amazing people too, loads of guests. So that's Deconstructing Sentience. Do go and look that documentary up. And so thank you so much, Laura, and thank you everyone for listening to us today. And Laura, I'll meet you in the chat room in a minute on our messenger, and I will send you the raw file so that we can both upload to our respective channels.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Much love, everybody.
Lots of love, everyone. Thank you for listening. Bye. Bye.